We're good? So welcome back. Those of you that are okay, in my experience of these 2-day things, the first day often feels like a kind of a laying of groundwork and can feel a little weighty and numbing. But the second day seems to get a kind of a lightness and taking off and a vitality to it. So that'll be the case this weekend too. Is anyone not clear on what we talked about, what I was going on about this morning, in terms of, at least the general idea, the general sense of what's involved?
We were talking about this at lunch. It's when you say it's always here and check it out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When I endeavor to check it out for myself, it always seems to go like right into my head, like the big head stuff. Like, okay, now I'm going to check it out, and that's not what you're pointing to, really. It always seems like my head tries to waylay it and make it into a mind-created object.
Right. Well, the head does that, but when the head's doing that, what else is happening? Your vision hasn't shut off, right? Your somatic sense hasn't shut off. Your intuition hasn't shut off. Your emotions haven't shut off. So it's not a matter of not thinking. It's not a matter of not being headed. It's not a matter of trying not to think. It's a matter of letting yourself be with more than that. So whatever the focus of attention goes to, there's more than that actually present. And that moreness is your opportunity. So it's not a matter of that the focus it shouldn't be there, it should be here. The focus of attention is a very interesting and subtle thing. Of course, we're all extremely familiar with this, but again, typically probably take it for granted. The attention always tends to generate a focus. It tends to light up something. And in actuality, if it's sort of unmonitored or in general, it tends to dance around. If you watch your focus of attention sometimes, you'll notice that it's just, it's sort of hitting on things, hitting on this, hitting on that, hitting on a thought, hitting on a memory, hitting on a feeling, hitting on seeing something, hitting on a word, So it's sort of dancing around, taking little sound bites or samples, so to speak, of different portions of your experience that its fancy happens to settle on for whatever way. But an interesting thing about the focus of attention that may not be obvious to the way we ordinarily, sort of mindlessly are with it, is even when something is in the focus of attention, the rest of the field is still present by degrees, and it may be less obviously present, less clearly, less sharply present, and so on and so forth. So whenever there's a focus, you can take any example of your experience, take your visual field, for example, and you'll notice that there's always a spontaneous focus of attention. It's typically in the visual field, particularly dancing around very, very rapidly. You can look at someone's face and you think you're looking at their face, but in actuality you're sort of looking at you're just dancing around doing little snippets, little snapshots. But even when it's doing that, I'm looking at your face now, but I can see the light turn, I can see the trees outside the window, I can see these lights flaring, I can see sun on the floor, and so on and so forth. They're not in the focus of attention, they're not as sharp or, not in the focus of attention sums it up, but they are present. And the full field is always present in the context of the focus of attention. And typically the conscious mind has a sort of a self-censoring mechanism that automatically tends to say, what's in the focus of attention matters and everything else is sort of not here. It pretends that it's only interested in what it's focusing on. But in actuality, that's not true. Because in actuality, you are experiencing the full field, always. And portions of your intelligence are even attending to it. But in ways that are a little less linear and a little less sort of conscious mind oriented, let's say, perhaps, in the focus of attention mode of engagement. So whatever you're focused on in your experience, there's also more present that you are actually experiencing, and you are actually engagedly experiencing, although in an engagedness that is perhaps a little bit different, a little more nebulous, a little more vague. And yet there is intelligence there is mode there is flavor there is quality there that is not a second-class citizen, that is not somehow less relevant because it's not in the focus of attention. So, in your example, you ask a question and you're thinking about it, you're like trying to figure something out. So that's where the attention is gone to the thoughts. But even when the attention is gone to the thoughts, everything else is present. And the fact that the attention is on the thoughts is actually a great opportunity to begin to check out, so what are these modes of outside the focus of attention like? What's up with that? And it's not like you need to figure it out or make sense of it or answer the question, but just sort of check it out. And of course, you'll notice right away your focus of attention will sort of shift to what you're playing with, and then it'll shift back as you think about what you're doing. But then you can sort of repeat the process, or sort of dance with it a little bit, and just sort of feel, well, if I'm really thinking about this, what am I feeling while I'm thinking about it? And how is that happening? What's up with that? And just sort of just leave it an open question of what are these other phenomena like, and what mode are they? What is this more non-linear, this less delineated mode like? And so it's not an either or. It's not like, oh, the conscious mind is bogus, you've got to get to the good stuff. It's not like that at all. It's that anything, in any mode whatsoever, is food for investigation, is a field for investigation. It's an invitation to discover that it's different than we used to thinking of it as being. Which is where discovery happens. Discovery happens with, wow, I'm used to thinking of this as being like this, but in actuality there's something else going on. And again, not that you need to answer the question or find out what's going on, that's not the point. The point is just even recognizing that there's more it sort of dissolves the boundaries, it dissolves the fixed normal modes of holding things to be this way and holding things to be that way, which is the conscious mind's mode.
What I'm hearing, how I took that was, I'm so used to interpreting everything through the conscious mind that I'm trying to grasp something that can't be grasped through the conscious mind with the conscious mind. Just let the conscious mind be and get a little focus and attention on the other. And the other is never going to be understood or explained or brought in through the conscious mind. And that's, I think, where my frustration is. The conscious mind always wants to get in. Oh, wait a minute, there's maybe some other here, and then the conscious mind goes to that.
But let it try. It's not that it's not that there's any antagonism there. That the conscious mind wants to own it is cool, and let the conscious mind try it. And it goes through its machinations, and it'll be thinking about it, the arguing with itself, and the whole deal. And so, but it's not that, okay, now that's happening, I need to suppress that or get outside of that and turn that off and go to this other thing. So no, okay, that's there. Yeah, I mean, we're very familiar with all that. What else is here that I'm not so familiar with? And it's a coexistence. It's multiple modes that coexist with each other, with whole different logics, with whole different, modes of engagement, whole different modes of participation. But they're you too. And they may be a you that you're not used to noticing or attending to. And so just simply by noticing that, by feeling that presence in the way it is, just feel that it's there. Don't bother like, no, I have to, go into it. And just feel it, let it do what it does. Give it the image, just touch it and it's there, feel that it's there. And then that's an invitation to see what happens. It's an experiment. It's like throwing a pebble in the pool, and you're just going to see what happens. But this is all about discovering multidimensionality, discovering the coexistence of multiple modes that are divergent from each other and even antagonistic to each other. And ordinarily, we may be used to thinking of these modes of experience as sort of either or, mutually exclusive, but it's not actually the case. They all coexist. And it's all, and again, it's all just about feeling. Just feel that it's there. You know, you don't need to sum it up. You don't need to complete it. Just opening that door, just sort of, just feeling is the whole thing, and then see what happens. And in practical terms, in terms of the engagement of this yoga, typically what happens is you'll have some degree of noticing something to feel somewhere that you're not going to, in whatever way that it seems to be, it doesn't matter. And you just let yourself touch it. And typically, you'll spin off right away. Like you said, you might just start thinking about it and trying to make sense of it or whatever. And the whole thing is, just let go. Don't try to stay with it or fight with it or prolong it. It's just a touch, you know, just sort of like almost an acknowledgement, just feel it, and then let it go. Because this is all about, remember, when we started today, I was talking about yoga as about sort of posture and about movement. So this is all about, we're very familiar with posture, which is kind of defining things. This is this, that's that, the other is the other. But movement, the way things morph, the way the attention drifts, the way experiential phenomena sort of have a ghostly tendency to morph into otherness and into change and all of this. So this is about sort of allowing some degree of experiencing that. And since it is movement, let it move. You know, you feel it and you get spirits and shoot away. Okay, cool, shoot away. Shooting away is good. You know, and sooner or later you come back or you go somewhere else. And so it's a kind of a letting go into kind of a free flowing, free associating, but sort of gently encouraging that in whatever way seems to apply. To just sort of go into otherness, just to sort of move. And again, you'll be snapping back and you'll move here. And it's a sort of a very loose and easy kind of a weird morphing, flowing thing. But that's what experience is anyway. That's what experience has always been. And so it's letting yourself notice that, it's letting yourself participate in that as it is, as a weird flow, a weird morphing, a weird whatever it is. You know, and even all these, metaphors of it's morphing or it's this or it's that, it's like, no, it's weirder than that. It is what it is, and no words can possibly begin to approach it. You know, and you'll never get to the end of it, but that's not the point. The point is to just, feel it as it is, open to it.
Jeff doesn't like us to talk about strategies. That sounds like an interesting one for physical pain, because I find that tends to draw my attention and focus on it.
Pain is great for yoga. No, pain is a great opportunity for yoga.
Yeah.
Because pain is a really, really weird phenomenon. And we typically we get a pain and we're kind of locked into it and we're trying to ignore it, but at the same time we're like zoomed on it completely. You get a little toothache or something, and what happens? Your attention goes zing, and you're like, and yet what it is, what is this? What is pain? What is this sensation? How is it appearing? Is it really solid? What's it made of? What energies does it consist of? Pain is a when you look at what pain is, and when you look at how you are with pain, and the way you dance around pain, and the way you try to avoid pain while at the same time sort of reifying it and insisting on it as this weird divergent sort of
And do the cause and effect. What made it happen? What can I do to get rid of it?
No, all that kind of thing. I mean, this whole snow, this whole snowstorm of phenomena. But it's just amazing to watch. Just to let yourself, rather than orient into the pain as the way you usually do, just watch the phenomena of that happening. And sort of from time to time, just gently, what is it that's here? what is this that I'm calling pain? You know, what is it made of? What is pain? And you'll discover pain is a very, pain, pain is most painful when you don't look at it very intimately. We sort of distance ourselves from pain, which actually sort of locks it in to being what it is, even at the same time we're sort of locked into it, which is kind of a focusing on it. But when you let yourself really look at what is this sensation that's here, you'll discover it's very interesting. It's much more dynamic than it at first seems to be. It's much more dimensional and hard to pin down than it at first seems to be. It's much more sort of, it's like a Northern Lights thing where it's sort of coming and going and breathing and alive. And it's not even particularly subtle to notice that. But we're usually so busy just hating it as pain that we don't attend to the delicacy of it, the nuance of it. And in fact, it's possible to be with pain and have it stop being pain. The phenomenon doesn't stop it. It gets so weird that, you're just lost in it. It's like, but you don't know what's happening, you don't know where you are. So it's a wonderful opportunity for exactly this kind of being with your experience from a fresh perspective, or at least being open to the possibility.
Does pain have a purpose?
Well, certainly, pain has a purpose, I suppose. Everything
What do you
has
suppose that is?
well, everything has a purpose. What experience is, to speak very broadly, experience is the presence of sort of energy qualities, let's say, or I call them experiential qualities, whatever it is all of these amazing phenomena happening that we experience. And certainly we experience sensation, we experience pain, we experience all of these things. And obviously, unless it's just sort of a big cock-up, a big accident that all this stuff is showing up, obviously all of this experience, this intense, bizarre, incredibly intricate, phenomena is doing something. It is what it is for being what it is, which is somehow doing what it's doing. I mean, obviously you can't, it's not you can just sort of spit out a good answer. But I think absolutely. All of these energy phenomena are intrinsic to whatever this is, whatever the process that this actuality is, that it's doing. It's not like we can get a handle on that, it makes sense, but I think I see all phenomena as profoundly purposeful.
What would that purpose be? To take pain out of the question and just in general, what is the purpose of anything?
Well, that's a good question. What is the purpose? And again, when you look at that, you plumb right into the core of this amazing phenomenon. You don't necessarily answer the question, but it's a wonderful sort of element. It is what it is. It's something. I mean, it's so intricate and so elaborate and so incredibly precisely, interactive with itself in so many astounding ways. It's hard, to me, it's unimaginable that it's just sort of some mechanical, meaningless, machine running down or something. I mean, clearly it's some intrinsic process or event that is purposeful.
Or not?
Well, yeah, you can say or not.
Or not, right? Because that's a story too, right?
Right.
That there's a purpose is a story.
Right.
We
Exactly.
don't know, we don't really know.
Yeah, exactly. The whole category of purpose is an abstraction that's contrasted with purposelessness. I mean, the word purpose doesn't mean anything unless there's some non-purpose you could define it by.
Sure.
But any verbal or conceptual inquiry, the reality of experience is going to very quickly go beyond that as being relevant. Because again, we're approaching it from these partialized concepts, which are based on defining themselves in terms of other partialized concepts, all of which are abstracted from the actuality, which is not partialized. So, it's...
On a more mundane level, how do you define overwhelmed?
Acknowledging actuality. I think
Makes sense.
unoverwhelmed is denial. I think that the business of the conscious mind is to pretend it has a handle on things, to pretend it's on top of things, to pretend it knows what it's doing, it's in control. And I think that stance is maintained through a hardcore pretense. I think if one looks at the actuality of experience, it's in a continual state of overwhelm. It's continually out of control. It's continually way beyond the pale in terms of getting a handle on anything.
So, once you're overwhelmed and the stimulus of your overwhelmed activity is so strong, how can you diffuse your attention or divide your attention between that, what you're overwhelmed with, and some periphery or some...
You don't need to, because the overwhelm by its very nature includes periphery. Overwhelm is when the periphery begins to smear into the focus.
But that's when it sucks you right in. You start daydreaming and start to be like, it's like you've gone from this moment somewhere into that overwhelmed state.
Yeah, but that overwhelmed state is also just a version of this moment. It's not like you can never leave the moment.
So it's not a bad thing, it's actually...
Nothing's a bad thing.
No.
There are no bad things.
I just always getting pissed off with myself when I daydream too much.
Oh, yeah, but again, that's qualifying. That's supposing daydreaming is less viable or less relevant or less important than some other mode of experience, and there's no real basis for that. You know, where's the proof of that? Where's the evidence of that? Daydreaming is the activity of intelligence, the activity of conscious participation in experiential content, which is all anything is, right?
But it's kind of like a wandering mind is not necessarily a good thing.
The mind always wanders. When is the mind not wandering?
Or if you're trying to actively focus your attention on something that was purposeful or pleasurable or meaningful or anything that has to do even with spirituality.
Sure.
But, you know, the freaking mind just wanders, you know?
Yeah, but that's the point. It always wanders. Even when you're focusing, if you look when you're focusing, you're actually sort of drifting here and drifting there. Focusing is a pretense. It's an arrogance. We pretend I'm focusing my mind now, you know. But it's more of public relations than the truth. The truth is you may be sort of in a general direction, but as you're in that direction, you sort of you could be careening around like a drunken driver. And because it's the nature of attention that it does that. You can't. Attention is intrinsically dynamic. It's intrinsically unstable. Right? I mean,
Do you have any suggestion how to refocus yourself? Like, yeah, it's nice to let yourself go if you're on the beach somewhere, if you're like sitting there under the tree. But if you're trying to accomplish something, or if you're trying to achieve anything at all, or even driving and not missing that freaking accident, then you keep on driving at 95. How do you come back with that attention and to have like a spotlight on?
well, how do you do anything? You know, how do you learn skillful functioning? How do you learn
I
skillful?
know because I have ADD, so I always like scared.
Yeah, but again, so that's an example. If you do have a condition where that's difficult, then that's what you have to work with. So that's your art form. That's your skillfulness, is to be able to work with that as best you can.
I was hoping you have some kind of your own trick or suggestion. And
Well, you know, you just sort of try and keep priorities and let yourself notice when you drift off and just come back. You drift off again, you come back. But being gentle is probably better than being rigid. I think what complicates the matter is when we're trying to do something and we're not doing it, and then we feel like we should be doing it, and so the whole thing sort of tightens up. Whereas I think if you're gentle with it, you drift off, you're drifting off, you go back, you're drifting off, you go back. You know, you sort of be a little looser, and you can actually be tighter by being looser. Rather than the other way around, when you're being tighter, to try to be tighter, and it actually makes you looser because you're, you know.
be nice to yourself.
Yeah, be nice to yourself, always good advice. But most efficient functioning comes from ease. Most efficient functioning comes from relaxation. Relaxation is the stance of efficiency, not tightness. You want to do something really well, chill out. Chill out and be playful too. Playful, chilling, relaxed and playful is the two ideal stances of sort of mood or of tension or sort of the energy tone.
Right.
Because then you're like it's like martial arts. Like if you're going to be doing some kind of martial arts combat with somebody, the more you freeze up and expect things, the stiffer you are. But when you're loose, you're ready for anything because you're not expecting anything. So you have a kind of a random access mode, which is actually very efficient because then you can be more responsive because you're not locked into you're not locked into expecting this or that.
When you mentioned about the visual focus and the visual, the whole field of vision perception, I was reading the book Open Focus by Les Premier, and he mentioned that by juxtaposing the heart focus on anything that you are focusing your attention, visual attention on, and relax your peripheral vision without moving your eyes from that object.
Right.
And periphery, you relax and you pick up a lot more from periphery without moving your eyes.
Yeah.
And somehow he found by doing EEG on the patients that state will put you in an alpha state, which is nice and relaxed, but meditative type of state.
You can do all sorts of experiments with your sensory fields. You can consciously you can just play with it, do these experiments. Like you can gaze steadily at something at a fixed focus, and while you're looking at the fixed focus without looking away, let your attention move to something else. So I can be looking at that computer and let my attention move to your face. I mean, obviously it's not in the focus of attention, so it's not sharp, but my attention's on your face, not on the computer. And then my attention can be on the ceiling, my attention can be on the floor. And so by this kind of exploration, you can explore, the awareness, how it works within focus of attention, how it works within the periphery, and just play with that whole thing rather than just being with it stupidly, like you're ordinarily.
It actually has a very nice somatic effect. It's kind of, I start experimenting every time on the red light, I'm looking at that light, and I'm kind of like staring at it and try to see as much periphery as I can, like the buildings, the posts, the other cars and things. And the more often you do, of course, a lot of times you forget to do that, you keep on going the entire day, but a lot of times if you do more often, come back to it, it could be very subjective, deceiving kind of thing, but I feel like it has very nice relaxing effect.
Every aspect of this, of what I'm suggesting is this yoga is very similar. So anytime you're being with your experience in more open ways than maybe what you're simplistically used to doing, you'll discover the same thing. You'll discover a kind of a relaxation and a kind of an integration that happens. I mean, this yoga is profoundly, basically just being with your experience more open-endedly, more non-linearly, is very integrative. It subtly and inherently, automatically changes sort of the way you sit within your experience, and it's integrative and relaxing and increases functionality, relaxation, all kinds of things.
So it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think so. That's why I'm here. Yeah.
Peter, like in Longchenpa and other Dzogchen texts, you often run across this term vast expanse.
Yes.
Like the heart essence of the vast expanse. And I know you're very familiar with these texts and things. But what I read somewhat recently, and of course listening and studying your work as well. So here's my question: is the vast expanse the same as experience?
Yes, of course. Of course it is. All these texts, Dzogchen and basically any esoteric text whatsoever, they're all about experience. There's nothing else for them to be about. This is what there is. And they may parse it in, very highly metaphorical, romantic terms like angels and devils and heavens and hells and whatever. But it's all just about this condition. Dzogchen is one of the traditions that's much more sort of technically oriented, and they're trying to be very much more precise with the different aspects of this, which is basically the way I'm approaching it, although with less of a technical background. I'm trying to parse it just in simple, experiential, everyday terms. But it's essentially the same thing. Looking at this actuality and letting yourself notice the way it actually is, which will certainly be more than you're used to thinking of.
maybe a follow-on question. So, like in Buddhism, and again, I know you're very familiar with all this, is like, so like, it's often said like compassion is the pillar of Buddhism or the path to the door. And what, but I guess I want to get your response to that because it's like everything exists within the vast expanse or within experience and isn't like, the highest forms of humanity is love, compassion. It's the same as the most horrific things.
Of course it is.
So it almost seems like irrelevant, still within the framework of this. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the extreme, everything is
Yes, exactly.
the Dharmakaya or the
Exactly.
radiant presence. So could you help with
Yes.
that?
Well, I mean, this is a complicated question, and it's twofold. The answer is that it's twofold. Number one, the word that's used as compassion in the higher tantras and in Dzogchen is a translation of bodhicitta, and it's a very sloppy translation because bodhicitta means enlightened mind, a mind of enlightenment, and which may or may not be analogous to compassion, but I don't think it's a particularly clear one-to-one translation. So there's that. And on the other sort of fork of the two sides of the compassion issue, as a skillful means in sort of lower level practice, compassion is very useful as a way of sensitizing oneself away from ego orientation, away from
Reducing
ego fixation. So instead of what's in it for me, you get a kind of a more of an inclusive stance, which is not necessarily an end in itself, but it's a trick to enable you to sort of turn down the urgency of me, I want, and sort of open to the field in a way.
Yeah.
But on that level, it's a fairly low level psychological trick. It's very useful, to the extent, there is a degree of fixation on this, and so it can be something to explore. But it's not, the be all and end all in itself.
So at the highest level, bodhicitta basically is the enlightened mind, which is radiant presence.
Of course.
So, but the lower, so compassion, what we normally use compassion is just another means to opening the door.
Yeah,
To reducing the ego is another practice.
It's a trick, and it's a wonderful trick as far as it goes. But once you've used that trick, once you've opened that door, you don't need to keep hanging out at the door. You can walk through it and go on to other doors or what have you to pursue that intention. But also, compassion in the more abstract meaning of compassion does apply to bodhicitta loosely, because enlightened mind is inclusive. It's absolutely inclusive. It is the very nature of enlightened consciousness, is absolute consciousness, includes all phenomena, as you say, it's everything, all energies, all flavors are it. So this inclusiveness, this complete even, you could say equanimity, you could say universal acceptance, you could say universal participation in every aspect of everything, is certainly consonant with the notion of compassion. But again, supposing that it is compassion in sort of a literal and simplistic sense is a little heavy-handed. It's kind of missing the point.
Right, thank you.
I disagree with the law of the way modern Buddhism in the West is being promulgated because of this emphasis on compassion, because of this issue. I think it's clouding the point of the thing, and it's taking something that is useful in its own realm and elevating it to a universal principle in a way which is liable to be confusing and misleading. But that's me.
And the same thing, like in Hinduism, love seems to be the door opener.
But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Again, exactly so. The God is love. I mean, this is a saying in many traditions, and it's absolutely true when you look at what love means. Love means the universal harmony of everything, and certainly reality is in total harmony with itself. And everything, all of the states are itself. So it's all a complete harmony. If you think from a human perspective simplistically, wait a minute, war is in harmony, famine, genocide is in harmony. Well, but it actually is. It's actually a manifestation a direct energy manifestation of this incredibly complex system, which is dancing with itself, doing God knows what, transcendentally, some of which looks like paradise and some of which looks like hell. But all of these extremes are included in it. Sunny days happen, hurricanes happen. Hurricanes aren't bad, sunny days aren't good, they're just different aspects of the same system. Right? And so likewise, we zoom in on the conditions we define as, from a human point of view, as horrific. They're just extreme cases of certain energy systems unfolding themselves, and certain energy states unfolding themselves. And war leads to peace. Peace leads to war. Right?
But why does one hurt and one doesn't?
Well, hurting is interesting. Hurting is playing a game where you're taking the full range of sensations and you're drawing a line to say everything on this side of the line is good and desirable, and everything on that side of the line is bad and undesirable.
Like a sunny day versus
Sunny day versus whatever, cold, rainy, hurricane, whatever your weather of non-choice is, and there's pleasure versus pain, harmony, explicit harmony versus conflict, perhaps. I mean, whatever, we all have our own personal scale, and different people have, no doubt, wildly divergent scales depending on their temperaments and so on. But it's basically, it's picking sides. It's like saying, it's like in a like people who are football fans, I'm a fan of the 49ers, go Niners. Oh, it's terrible, the Niners are losing. Did you hear what's happening? Oh my God, this is horrible. The Niners should beat everybody, that would be good. You're sort of taking sides. Pleasure is good, pain is bad. Pain happens. Pain is an aspect of the way energy happens. It shows up, pain typically shows up as as sort of one aspect of the energy metabolism of experience. Certainly in terms of experiencing the body, right, experiencing the soma. Pain is a portion of the range of sensations is experiences what we might call pain. Other portions of experiences what we might call pleasure. Other portions of experiences, various shades of neutrality and so on. But it's all a continuum, and it all comes with. You can't have one without the other. When you have a body, you get occasional pleasure and you get occasional pain. So if pain is bad, bodies are bad, which means life forms are bad, which means exterminate everything. That's the logic, because there's no way to have no pain. It hasn't been discovered yet. Maybe, as medicine and/or psychology and/or whatever increases as a science, people will discover ways of inducing experience which is always pleasurable and enjoyable. But in terms of sort of naturally occurring experience, that doesn't seem to happen. It seems to, all these different ranges of energy seem to show up as part of the natural process of things. Just like the weather, all these different kinds of weather show up as part of the process. So it's us as humans who are saying this is good and this is bad. Because life isn't saying it. Life is just saying it just is. Pain happens. Pleasure happens. Pleasure never always happens, and pain never always happens. All these things come and go and breathe, and it's just like it's not sunny all the time and it's not rainy all the time. There's this flow of the energy shapes of the system.
You said they all are derived from compassion.
Of course. Because it's the same system, and the system is in harmony with itself. Let's take it simplistically as an example. Look at the weather system of the Earth. The weather system of the Earth is in perfect equilibrium. High pressure here makes a low pressure here, and they interact perfectly in the dance and balance each other out, or leads to whatever it leads to, which leads to more high pressures and low pressures. And sometimes, in some particular place on the globe, it looks like a sunny day, and sometimes it looks like a hurricane. But it's always a dance of perfect dynamic equilibrium, which is, is compassion. It's self-accommodating all of its nature, you might say, right? And that's just in terms of weather system as an example, but you can look at biological systems, the health of an individual. You know, we have health and we have sickness. And all life forms get sick, all life forms have health, all life forms, you know, live, all life forms die, so on and so forth. All these different energy states happen. All of which is just ramifications of the ongoing balance of dynamic equilibrium that these systems, it's their nature to manifest, it's their metabolism. It's when we judge it, we look at it and draw a line and we say, everything on this side is good and everything on that side is bad. Hey, there's nothing wrong with liking pleasure and not liking pain. But that's just a personal bias. And I mean, like, tough luck. What good is that going to do you? I mean, you know, and to speak more generally, not just about this topic, but really globally about everything we've been talking about today, you know, specific aspects of any situation are portions of the whole. You know, any specific is a portion of the whole system, and it's a manifestation of the whole system. And the system will always have more aspects than any partial aspect of it. In other words, when you look at it, every part is a part of the whole, you know, and you can't separate them out. You know, the way the mind works and the way language works, we tend to separate things out. You know, this is this and that's that, that's not this, this is not that, we're separate. But that's imaginary, that's conceptual. This is a part of the world. This is a part of the world. You can't separate them out. You can't take this and put it into a different universe than others. It can't happen. They're in the same world. They're made by the same matter. They're interacting in the same energy system. They are embedded in one system, that they are both aspects of. So this and this are both aspects of this system. You and me are both aspects of this system. And so, but we're used to saying, no, I'm me and you're you. We're not the same. We're different. But that's conceptual, because you can't actually separate the components of the system and the partial aspects of the system out of the whole system. You can't separate individual life forms out of the biosphere. It just doesn't work. Individual life forms are manifestations of the biosphere. You know.
You mentioned something to somebody over here about devils and angels.
Sure.
What was that?
Oh, I was just saying that, you know, we have many, many, many systems in spirituality and in philosophy that incorporate all sorts of different qualities and elements. You know, you have Christianity, you know, you have sort of, you know, very heavy-handed, not thoughtful Christianity, which has, you have the rapture, and you have heaven, and you have people who accepted Christ into their heart, and those who haven't, and I mean, whatever, right? So there's this whole elaborate story, this whole elaborate game with all these elements. So there's Christ, and there's accepting into your heart, there's not, there's heaven, there may be hell, there may be, I mean, there's whatever. So they're defining all of these really complex elements that supposedly are part of reality. And the point I was trying to make is all of these elements that they're defining into existence are actually portions of or aspects of this experiential field. Because this experiential field is the soul reality. It's the only thing anyone has ever talked about. It's the only thing anyone has ever thought about, because there's nothing else to talk about or think about. You know? Physical science physicists, what they study is experience. You know, they're talking about subatomic particles, you know, but subatomic particles are something they study by building these big machines, and big machines exist in experience. And running the big machines exists in experience. And the results of the big machines exist in experience. You know, you send these neutrons around smashing into each other at incredible speeds. All of that is a description for something that's showing up in someone's experience. Someone has seen the machine, someone has built and designed the machine, someone has turned the machine on, and someone is collating the results of the machine. It's all within their experience. They might as well have dreamed the whole thing. You can build an atom smasher in your dreams, you know, and then run it and watch and calibrate the results. What's the difference? And so the same with all of these different descriptive systems, they're all about the same thing. There's only one reality. So anything that's about reality has to be about the same thing, even if they're wildly different descriptions. You know, what a fundamentalist Christian is talking about and what a physicist is talking about has to be about the same thing, even though it seems radically different, because there's nothing else to talk about. There's only one reality. It's not like there's a Christian reality and there's a physicist reality. How could that be? Yeah.
Nan was telling me when she was in California, you handed out a paper with hermetic terms on it,
Oh, yeah.
and you explained it, and you said you went through each term. How does that relate to is that just another method of describing this?
Yes, exactly. It's another method of describing it.
But you seem to be respectful of that whole tradition.
Sure. I like it a lot. I think it's very powerful and very evocative.
Really?
Yeah, but it's something that's not, most modern people aren't aware of and don't know about, you know, alchemy. It's not
Yeah.
a very widely respected field of study these days.
Well, yeah, I was always intrigued by it. That's why I was excited that you had talked about it.
Well, I did, I mean, it was the focal point of the whole retreat I did. Not that it in itself is important, but that it was another way of addressing these very same things that we're talking about from another perspective, from another sort of a symbol system. But it's talking about exactly the same thing, and very succinctly and very powerfully, poignantly.
It's like the one that's pre-Christian Hermeticism.
Yeah.
I think occultists.
Yeah.
So it's still kind of debated. The Buddhistic esotericism came first, or Hermeticism came first?
Well, history is irrelevant. You know, from my point of view, the important thing is what all those things are about, not their history or their sociology or their philosophy. Because all of these approaches are, you know, or at least pretend to be, try to be a technology for dealing with, for empowering one to deal with reality more profoundly, more integrated, which is what yoga, which is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, but they are talking about not hermetic library now, and all these not including Bible Gospels of St. Thomas.
Sure.
That's more hermetic.
Sure.
It's very much a Christian type of tradition of
Sure.
spirituality.
Yeah.
But they purposefully did not include that in the Bible. They
Right.
not determine them as a canonical type of
Yeah.
Gospels, because they did not necessarily agree with the doctrines
Sure.
of that time church and
Sure.
and Pope.
Yeah, when Christianity was set up, you know, in the early conclaves in the first 400 years of Christianity, it was basically a big spin doctoring festival. They decided what it was going to be. They had an enormous amount of stuff to choose from. You know, there were hundreds of gospels and hundreds of of related teachings that were related supposedly to Christ. And they very carefully weeded through them and selected a few to paint the picture they wanted to paint. So Christianity was sculpted and created largely by politicians, 300 or 400 years after the death of Christ, if he ever lived.
Yeah, that's how church that became a church and canonical and everything's like under the rule of Rome. The Roman Empire was really country.
Yeah, it was spin doctored into existence. But see, all of that is just a quirk of human behavior. I mean, you can look at all spirituality. The politics of spirituality is dizzying. And every spiritual tradition has its politics because, of course, human beings are involved, and when humans are involved, they like have their wicked way with it, right? But all of that is beside the point in terms of tradition. Spirituality has little to do with tradition. Tradition pretends to be the safeguard and the protector of the important points of spirituality. The spirituality itself is personal discovery done on an individual basis of the nature of reality.
Yeah, but why would church deny it and determine that as a heretic? And
Sure.
and they prosecuted, they self-defense with like 20,000 Qatars.
Sure. It's always been killed.
Burned
Millions of women were burned as witches
Yeah.
during the Middle Ages,
So-
the Inquisition. Humans are really good at being mean to each other.
But even now, the church is not open-minded about spirituality at all. Maybe some Jesuits, but like Catholic Church is like really against spirituality.
But anyway, all this is just in the realm of human opinion, and it isn't really relevant to what we're here for. This week.
So trying to get real with my experience, I kind of even like awareness in space. As I'm in this experience, I can feel my awareness and I can feel space, but my question is on space. And I've had some kind of weird things happen where I don't know, space has no size. It could be a singularity, it can be infinitely large.
Sure.
And there seems to be no context for space.
Sure.
And actually now I don't know what space is. So could you speak to
And
space?
likewise with awareness, you talk about awareness in space. Where does awareness end and space begin? Where does space end and awareness begin? Is awareness and space two things?
They
They're
seem to
two
be
words.
confused. Yeah.
But when you go looking at the actuality, there is awareness here. There is degrees of spatiality here. But space is a very interesting thing. It's very slippery. We're sitting here and there's this palpable space. The room is spacious and it's in the outer space of the yard and the environment and so on. This is a felt sense that it's like that. But then you go to sleep, and what's the space like when you're drifting off to sleep? But this space just disappears in relevance. It just sort of evaporates and it's not present at all. It's not necessarily non-spatial, but it's some weird whatever when you're in deep sleep. And then you start dreaming, and all of a sudden there's a new space. You can dream you're on the lip of the Grand Canyon looking at this incredibly big thing, you're terrified to fall in. And then you wake up and you think back, there was no space there at all. I was in bed with my eyes closed. Where did space come from? So space is not necessarily a fundamental category of reality. Space is a relatively superficial dimensionality that can seem to appear, and doesn't necessarily need to. Can experience be non-spatial? Well, kind of, yeah. There's always a degree of sort of pseudo-spatiality, in the sense the experience always seems to present itself as somehow smeared or somehow different than itself. Our experience of physical space or sensory space, for example, is, this is here, and that's there, and that's not here, and this is not there, so there's a difference. There's a separation. And yet the space is one space, so there's also a continuum. When you go to sleep, there's still differentiation, there's still all sorts of sort of phenomena and tingles and moods and whatnot. God knows what, but you don't have words for these phenomena. But there's still, even if it's not an explicit spatiality, it's an explicit space which is, has heightened depths and whatever, still in all there is differentiation. It doesn't necessarily collapse to a complete, absolute, unified, explicit. It's sort of a smearness, there's sort of a smearing to it. It presents as different in itself, even though that difference might not be a readout like it's specifically spatial, right? So space is an interesting phenomenon.
How do you focus attention on space?
I don't know. How do you focus attention on space?
I was reading Douglas Harding, the headless media, and it's very, as you said, palpable experience. I don't know how to focus on it, but the pointing, the experimentation that he did, and actually Richard Lang, he was here from China a couple years ago, did all this, and it has fantastic. I don't know how to verbalize it, but the sensation of space like in yourself, or instead of your head, where your head is, the space the head occupies, and the fact that you do not see your own head without looking in the mirror, that sensation is very real experience.
Of course. And all these kinds of things are directly experienceable by doing these sorts of experiments, by experimenting with your experience and exploring it, rather than being with it in the sort of simple, normal way we usually are when we're going about our business. And that's the point, is to discover these for yourself, discover the range of possibilities by trying these sorts of experiments and making up your own experiments and just, having at it. Thomas, or?
Yes. It feels like something you're noticing is accumulated.
Yes.
Is it a fantasy, like another sort of hope that it accumulates somewhere?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. The way I would put it, not necessarily that it's true, but I think it's meaningful to put it that there's a kind of a development of skillfulness. There's a development of subtlety and artfulness of being able to be with it in more and more subtle ways. And so it's like learning something. So in that sense, it's accumulative in the sense that over time, you may in some ways be able to do it better and more precisely and more subtly than you remember doing it in previous occasions and so on. But I think it's a development. I think the very nature of what this yoga is a progressive sensitivity training. You're training yourself in being sensitive to the way experience actually is. And our starting point, we're as sensitive as however we are. But by deliberately or let's say effectively developing sensitivity to the way it really is, it may be possible to actually develop that sensitivity. And as one develops sensitivity, one is more sensitive, one can perceive more subtly some of the aspects of the way this actuality is. And as that sensitivity increases, then we develop the ability to look even more finely and develop more sensitivity, so it kind of builds on itself, perhaps.
And because in the end, that sensitivity is all there is in the end.
Yeah.
The noticing of it itself feels accumulated, perhaps, but it's actually not. It's just always the case.
Yeah. And the sensitivity is not you're building up the sensitivity for something. The sensitivity is it.
Right.
And you're not necessarily, it's all very slippery because you're not necessarily developing or accumulating more sensitivity. Maybe you're just becoming more aware of the sensitivity that's already there. More sensitive to the sensitivity.
Noticing we don't notice is noticing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all what this stuff is. You can't get a sense of what this is except by doing it. And even when you're doing it, you want to get all different sorts of senses of what it is that will evolve and morph. And there's no final version, so you're opening Pandora's box. Yeah.
Peter, you often talk about like transmission, or what this yoga is like you're getting zapped. Could you talk about that some more? And does it actually change your energy form, or how would you describe what getting zapped is? Or
Well, it's a mystery. Through being with the possibility that this is more than we're used to thinking of it as being, it becomes a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy or a self-fulfilling availability that increases the field of one's, at least subjectively, in the sense of it increases the field of one's, options or freedom in being with one's energy in fresh ways. And this is palpable. This is a felt sense.
What is this? Is that, what are those, how do you get this? Like electrical?
zap or transmission?
It's all metaphors.
Yeah.
You have to, if you experience something that seems to be a zap, and that's what a zap is.
Is it this right context also say like noticing is kind of like getting zapped or?
Sure, of course it is. And there's simplistic ideas in some spiritual visions, simplistic ideas of transmission, like some people are somehow batteries of this force and they, send it to you and all you're getting is receiving this energy and, you're getting charged, like charging up your cell phone night or something. I mean, who knows, right? But I think that's all very simplistic. I think, the whole notion of ultimately, all of your experience is you're dancing with your own energy. And so when one experiences these sort of seeming energy influxes or seeming, uplifting sort of perspectives, They are found in what you are. They don't necessarily coming from outside or being given to you or being sent to you or anything like that, even though it's often parsed in those terms. Why don't we have a 5-minute break?
No, me too. I never heard that before. It's like some certain,
Noticing that, just
Early break.
see
like, it's the same
What are we eating? Are we eating sugar?
God, no.
Refresh my.
The better part of California. Let's not just call it California. The Southern California gives me the heebie-jeebies. Yes. Well, Santa Cruz. Yeah, it's okay. Jokingly, population voters have said, why don't we divvy up California? It's just too big, right? To manage but everybody's fighting over Santa Cruz. He said, well, yeah, well, Santa Cruz is Northern California. So you're hippies. Take a lot of both. With all the glitter and all that other stuff. Although Palm Springs is very good. Oh, have you? I've never been there either. I'd like to go there. From San Diego all the way up north to Eureka. Oh, really? Yeah, one of his younger brother lived there. Santa Barbara just had a huge oil spill right in their little bay.
So look at what the visual field is being perceived.
Yeah, it's really like that with people. I was like that with Jeff and Beth when I met them.
In real time.
Yeah, well, you know.
And another mind is
Yeah, he's the last guy in the world that I would look to envy. But a bell kept going on and saying, this is the one. He said, oh, it's so freaky. But we have the same interests. I've been seeking and searching since I was a little kid. So would he. So. We met in 73. We were 23 years old. We started living together in 74. So 3 years. Oh, wow. It's a wonder. We're the dinosaurs. Nobody does that anymore. Are we stupid or stubborn? Which? Right. Fourth anniversary, we're still in our honeymoon. It's just cares. Well,
Well, this is second, it's worth celebrating. How long was he married the first time? 15 years of your life is a big number. The only reason we kill each other is find somebody else who gets his walk. So, might as well work out our neuroses and then get out of it. It's worked out great. Yeah, we did too. Marriage we were just, life takes you through things. He had cancer, and after he had cancer, it really shifted things for him and for me. Well, it made us really look at the reality of what life is a little more acute with, because we kind of pushed to a corner. Life is a whole dash between those two numbers on your tombstone. What does that mean? And then for somebody who's faced with it, you go, okay, no more piddling around, because it's not about seeking and being Buddhist or being Buddha, or whatever you are seeking for. It's time to really get it done, finished, over with.
It grabs itself. It tries to grab itself. It tries to hold itself. It has to hold itself. It tries. Right. And then the failure occurs, and then a regrouping occurs.
You can't be a seeker forever.
We just saw something.
You don't have to put them on all the being aware.
No,
You can be.
you can't put it away. And then what's going to come out?
And that was what she said, literally.
Yeah.
It's
My whole
always,
takeaway.
it's just a matter of noticing all of the various, it's like pushing a given society and noticing, well, these people are in power, and these people are
Find a good serious,
and all these factors are there.
well, but that is part of your finding. It's part of finding out what it is you've been thinking, doing, wanting. Because if you're wanting something, you're supposed to see it.
And then you want to build it.
Because all of these modes are
Yeah.
the modes of the brilliance. The brilliance is doing that. These are not problems that need to be solved.
Well, when someone like that who you're really focusing on and respect and you're listening to says that. Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't.
I don't know anything.
Yeah,
So,
I knew nothing about it.
But that's a very good line, very good statement to make.
She said, you're all seekers, what are you seeking? Not seeking and doing and needing.
Finding that you're
It's its own
here.
adversary, it's its own challenge, it's its own.
You know, I think for a lot of us, especially those of us who were in the Christian
And
Judeo
yet, that's what it is. It is that. And so that is it. So that's to be
we
on.
rebelled at some point from those traditions of our parents, even if our parents were agnostics or atheists, and decided, well, we're going to look at this for ourselves, because our generation is sort of like that. And
But ultimately, it's essential.
we just really adopt another system for the most part. Most of us, we just either become Buddhist,
Kind of a goodness about it.
Adventist, or we become something else, you know.
It's just going to be, let me see.
And eventually that wears itself in too, because you recognize there's a lot of if that wasn't right, then what makes you think this toy is any better?
Reality is the way it is.
That's the thing. It's up to you. You know, no one else can decide it for you, or you can be pointed in some direction, I suppose. But it's all these different. Exactly. Right, exactly. They're all different vehicles, and different vehicles work for different people. Exactly. For Peter and me, we did the whole Hindu, Buddhist thing, Vedas. He did the Bhagavad. Oh, I did Bhagavad. I love Bhagavad. I hated her. I love the whole system. Well, she's great. I liked that she was in my face, and I would get right up to her face. This was in the choice. Oh, I'm gonna turn around now. Man, preparing that, yes, well, that. But then I also did the school and the New Year's cleanse and everything. Oh, well, one time she walks right up to me, she's far from me, and she's smiling and I'm going, it's a very sweet smile. And down deep inside I'm thinking, oh, I'm in trouble. She wouldn't be smiling unless she was going to pull a fast one. And sure enough, she says, aren't you glad? Like that, I'm thinking, oh, I'll be going for trouble tomorrow. And there you, or later, sure enough, I stood up to her and I just, I needed something to push up against. And man, it just opened up the top of my head. And I realized, oh, she just doesn't know. And the bottom line where I got from her was that the answer to every question was always no. Because it's never true. Never true. And I looked around at people who've been with us for like 30 years and still asking questions. And I felt like every answer is no. What's so difficult about that to get? So anytime you think anything, no, just no. And so where's the yes? The yes is right here. Somewhere else. And you can't relate it. So to me, that was, and then of course, then I went and spent a few months in the desert by myself. And I spent it in front of a cemetery way down in Consequences, you know where that is? Consequences, yes! To me, that's a holy place for me. This place is amazing. I read yeah, they are way out there. And it seemed to me, one morning, and I literally woke up. One morning, I woke up. I woke up. And Peter calls me up. I answer the cell phone. I woke up this morning. And he just pauses, and I said, I woke up when I woke up. And he started laughing. I started crying. I started laughing. It was like, and he was just being very supportive on the other end of the line, because he's not there, right? And I'm just saying, I'm just giggling and crying all at the same time. I said, hung up, and I just sat there staring at the jackrabbits in the cemetery right across. I rented a little house and a little porch facing the cemetery. I spent hours sitting there. Yes, and there. This was not so many.
Some really interesting people in the back. That bookstore on the side.
Yes. Well, that whole town has some really interesting things. Even the grocery store, which was family run for years, I guess decades, they started carrying things like organic fruits and produce and all that. And I thought, I could stay here for a while. Fortunately, I had a friend who lived, a friend I've known for decades and decades, who lived 2 houses down. So I thought if I got into a real freak out, I would go to her house and crash there, you know. Because going through this thing, you flipped out on several occasions. You have to get to all the hard stuff in a way, which is why I like Byron Katie, because she makes me confront things that have given me and her system is very good for getting us to agree. And actually, this is worse than you are. She made you work real hard.
An hour, 15 minutes.
Not too bad.
This is wonderful. You come by. Are you seeing your family here?
Hurting something, you know, something where you felt really guilty about doing it, treating yourself in a sense. I mean, there are ways in which you can see that anything.
Brooklyn, haven't been there in
you're
so
all
long.
in it together.
Hopefully happens.
I'm not communicating it very well, but. And so, there was one young woman, for instance, at the school I went to, her son had cancer, it was literally not done. And she said to her, you know, she talked her through the whole work. When I was growing up, questions that were around all that stuff. By the end of it, she was very younger than me. She recognized that a son's life was whole, regardless of how many years he had. And whether he survived cancer or not,
And now it's like,
wasn't
people are sort of like, hi, how you
something
doing?
that was wrong,
People are friendly and, you
but
know,
something that
the
is.
and the comfort with the races.
And I was very impressed at how peaceful it was. Right, yeah. And then she recognized that my life was all this years to be like, yeah. Present now, it's the whole time that he was alive. However long that was. Nice. Things change for better. Caught up in her feelings. Yeah.
Pendulum keeps on swinging. Don't hold your breath.
Give it some time.
Shows how I realized, oh my God, I wasted the first, however old that man was, I wasted the first 25 years. So now another thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But eventually you get to where you don't have to work anything through. You don't have to work every item, because once you got it, that it's all the same, then all the other items fall the same. I used to do a meditation even before Byron came. I'd imagine my daughters dead, both of them, they're twins. And I thought first, what would I do if one died? Well, I can't do myself because the other one needs my support. Then I thought, well, what if they both died? And I thought, that's kind of disrespectful to them. When that thought came to my mind, I thought, what do you mean by that? And I thought, it's that, in a way, I blame them for my own loss.
That's interesting. That's really.
And you know, as a mother, I don't know if you guys are mothers, but as a mother, the worst thing about it, in my opinion, is my own children passing away. I mean, that really scared me. I used to meditate conscientiously on it. And eventually one day I just sort of went over the barrier and I thought, oh, the best thing I can do for them in their lives is to respect the fact that they are a part of me and I encourage them. They can't be because you couldn't have done me better than you did what you did.
You go to the sand, we know what I'm talking about.
Right out there, right out there.
And then one more. My turn.
Don't mind me if I.
Would you enjoy doing a little experiment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Enthusiasm. Well, why don't, if you allow me, let me lead you on a little meditation, and we'll just play around, play with some of this stuff, and have some fun with it. So, just relax, come comfortable. Yeah, don't do anything special, just here you are, right? So feel this here-ness. This is here, this is present, isn't it? Just feel that. What is it's so obvious and so pervasive, but so subtle and undefinable. Feel this, feel the presence of your experience. Feel how spontaneously and effortlessly it's present. There's no effort involved, there's no friction. It's just here. It is present. Just feel the way that is. Notice how your field of vision is present. If your eyes are open, it's present as all of this light. When your eyes are closed, it's still a full field of light, isn't it? Just little twinkles and little patterns, whatever it is. Feel the vision just floating right here in this presence. just with its own texture. You can tell it's vision because it has its own sort of texture, doesn't it? And you can feel the field of your hearing, the field of sound presence. And it has a different texture than the field of vision presence, doesn't it? Different kind of I don't know, texture, different flavor, I don't know what it is, but it's easy to tell. You can tell sound is sound, and you can tell light is light, can't you? It feels different, doesn't it? You don't need to think about it, it's completely obvious. And they're both just here, right? Field of hearing is here, it's always full. You may be in a very quiet room, but there's still a full field of hearing, just hearing very subtle, soft sound. Right? And the vision, the same thing. You may be in a dark room, but the field of vision is completely present, just here, floating. And feel the field of your sensation, the field of touch. This, this funny shape of tingles, all these tingles. What is touch? Feel what touch is. All this tingling, this aliveness, this dynamism, never stops moving. Just sitting here. Notice how these different fields don't get in the way of each other. The field of touch doesn't get in the way of the field of hearing at all. It's like they coexist next to each other in a different dimension or something, don't they? They're both here, but they don't block each other, they just coexist. Field of vision, so in the same way, it doesn't get in the way of, nothing gets in the way of anything else. There's plenty of room for all of these different experiential qualities, experiential textures. And then, of course, smell and taste are present as they are, just floating just as they are. And all just present, just here, just actual. Without any effort, without any friction or tension, it just appears spontaneously. Bang, here it is always, never goes away. There's a field of thought, field of mind. All these, notice how it has a texture too. You can tell thought. Thought has a very different texture than sound, doesn't it? But what's the texture of thoughts? What's the texture of mind? It's almost like the northern lights or something. It's sort of very ephemeral flickerings of little wisps of textures or patterns or something. All just coexisting, always all present. There's always content in the field of mind. There's always content in the light present in the field of vision, sound present in the field of hearing, tingling present in the field of touch. Just all there. Notice how dynamic all this is. In the instant, it's exactly the way it is, and it's all tingling and vibrating and becoming something else and presenting as a new pattern. With no duration, with no lasting, with no remnants, no echo, no persistence. It's continually, instantaneously, exactly the way it is right now, always, in this present. All these radiant qualities just shining forth spontaneously in this presence. So you're looking at your different sense fields in the mind floating here, where they always are, not getting in each other's way. And the different textures, different dimensions, different sort of degrees of thickness. And what else is present? Those aren't the only things that are present, are they? What else is present? Little flavors, little moods, little vibes. Don't really fit into any of the other categories. In fact, if you look at your field of vision and you go outside it, and look at your field of hearing, go outside it, look at your field of touch, go outside it. You go outside all the sense fields. It's not nothing, is it? It's always something. There's always some degree of quality there. Look for yourself and see it, check it out. Just play with it. Just explore, move around in these. Notice the focus of attention can easily sort of drift to one or another of these fields and emphasize it and experience the way it is. Feel its texture, feel the way it happens to be at the moment, happens to be presenting. And all of these different dimensions of the experience are always just present, they're always available, just right here. They never go away, do they? Can't shut them off. Can't turn them off, can't turn them down. Just floating here effortlessly. What is it all in? What's it all in? What's the field of vision in? What's it floating in? What space is it in? What's the field of hearing in? What the field of sound? What's it in? What space is it in? The field of thought, of mind. What space is it in? What contains it? Where is it? How's it sitting? Is it sitting on something? Is something holding it up? Is it just floating somehow, strangely, in its presence? Just feel the way it is. Feel the texture of it. It's so fine and so detailed. It's so interesting and nuanced. Such a range of texture that's just containing itself, just present right now. It's just here. It just happens to be here, effortlessly, spontaneously. Let's see if there's anything else. Is there anything else at all? Does anything else exist? Is there anything that's missing that's here but isn't somewhere in all of this? Try and find the edges of the space that the sense fields are in, the edges of the space that the mind is in, the edges of the space that all these different experiential textures are in. So you find an edge, and you find a place where it stops. Just play with it, just feel it. See what it's like. Just however it happens to be, just here the way it is. It's always here, it's always somewhere, the way that it is. Just feel it out. It's all in presence, isn't it? It's all here. It's present. And if you just sort of relax and let yourself drift through these different areas, however you find yourself going, it's always just, you never leave this presence, just drift in these different flavors, different textures, different densities. Always right here. All these sensations, all these flavors, just flavors of radiance in this presence, flavors of experiential qualities in this presence. sort of drifting through. So that's just a very little example of ways to play with this, ways of being with your experiential field, and just be with it as a field of presence, be with it as a field of experience, and explore it, play with it, let it be what it is, and dance around in it. See what you find. See the way it is what it is. That's sort of a way of just sort of taking inventory of various aspects of what's present. And you can sort of zero in or zoom into one portion of it and go into your field of vision and see what is vision. You can really be with it very finely. Try and find the edges of the field of vision and find out what's going on here. Where does it end? What happens? How does it end? How can anything be outside the field of vision? How can there be a field of sound that isn't impinging on the field of vision? What's happening between sound and vision? I mean, you can just play with all of these. Just look at all this stuff. Just play with it and see what's going on. What is this? We're very familiar with it, right? It's always here. It's always the field of vision. It's always here. But we don't usually, most of us don't usually direct any attention at these fields themselves. What is this? What is this? What is this presence of light? What is this presence of sound? What is this presence of light? And you can lend a fresh perspective on what's going on here and what you are. Because it's all you. You are all of it. You're not like some little piece over in a corner, separate from it. It's all right here in you, isn't it? In your experience. Mm-hmm. For me, the most amazing thing about this field is that it's actual. It's actually here. This presence, this field of experience is present. It's realized. It's so obvious and undeniable. To me, that's inconceivable. How can that be? What is that? Any observations, any reflections?
I feel like that's the root, got the words in my mind that this is the root of all art, exploring experience. That's all that it is.
And art is really learning to be with these energies artfully. And art proper is the expression of that degree of artfulness. Van Gogh wasn't amazing because he knew how to splash paint on a board in a certain way. He was amazing because he knew how to be in his energy in a certain way. And his paintings reflected that artfulness of him being able to be in his energies in that incredible way. It's so obvious. You look at the painting, you're seeing his energy, which is embodied in the way he put the paint. It's not about the paint. It's about the artfulness of his being able to be in his energy in various ways.
But he was only experimenting with his own experience.
Of course, what else is there to do? But this is one of the amazing things and one of the fun things to discover is there's so much options, there's so much room to be with your energy in different ways. You know, most of us are used to being with our energy in a more or less normal way, the way we are. You know, it's kind of our default mode. We just go to it. You know, this is me, and I'm being me in the way that I am me. You know? But in actuality, it's possible through exploring this, through playing with this, through various kinds of experiments or what have you, to discover other ways, to explore other ways of being within your own energy field that have entirely different implications, entirely different flavor to them. And this is what makes an artist, this is what makes genius, is being able to be with the energy in a fresh way from a perspective that has a potent vitality that can be embodied in interesting ways.
It's also the root of all healing.
Right.
Healing art.
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing pain in a new way. Seeing how it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Something weird, it's as if something is also looking back. So I see things, but I'm being seen, and then it's neither. It's when you oriented us to something more outside of the usual fields of usual categories that felt very familiar. And I found that strange.
Mm-hmm. I think with the experience, it's very much like astronomy. You know, you look at the Earth, and the Earth is very concrete in all the details, and you can explore the Earth and go around it and see all the phenomena. But you can start going up, way up into the atmosphere, and phenomena change. It gets very much more rarefied, different qualities of things going on. And then you go up into near space, and it gets even much more rarefied, different things. But it's not empty, there's phenomena there, there's energy, there's different qualities. You go up into the solar system, and again, it's, you know, by comparison with the density and the obviousness of the range of phenomena of the Earth, it seems very rarefied. But still, there's all sorts of energies and radiation and, gravitation, whatever you think. So as far out as you want, and you never get to nothing. But it gets subtler and subtler and more rarefied relative to the density of the concentration near the planet. But it's always something, and there's never a boundary. It's never like it stops being the planet and it starts being space. It just sort of is a continuum, an inclusive continuum that just goes out and out and gets rarer and rarer and rarer. But out there and here, there's no separation. It's a continuum. And I find that in experience, the density of the sensory experience is very palpable and concrete and thick in a way. And then going, exploring the more subtler ranges of energy, subtler ranges of experience, one discovers, that even though we're not usually sensitized to noticing things here because we're so, interested in the heavy-handed, obvious things that are happening in the senses, but if you just sort of spend some time with your attention there, you notice it's not nothing. It's not actually this phenomenon, this quality, very subtle, very rarefied, and you're there too. You never get to a place where you can't go there, and you're stuck here, and you have to look over there. You never get there. You can always go. There's no containment. There's no boundary.
That's one of the strange things I find is when you take us through something like that, is the concurrency of it. It's very, even though as you point out, you start to differentiate them. The hearing's over here, it's not getting in the way of sight and sight here. But then there's an obvious lead where they're all taking up, they're all not plotting up to go anywhere. They're concurrent in some strange way.
No, you can't parse precisely their geometry. They're not separate and they're not the same. That they're in a very strange relationship of concurrent dimensions of something. I mean, you can't say what it is. You can't. It's not like you can draw a map of it.
No.
And yet, it's very concrete matter, actual.
Yeah.
So you can look at it very clearly.
Yeah, that's. And even though the substance of light, the substance of thought, the substance of sensation are also differentiated in their bandwidths. It seems substantively, but even that kind of disappears because even though they remain markedly different, made out of something obviously concretely different, it's the same. It's made up. There's something substantive in there that's not a substance that is the same. That hearing is.
It's all very strange and nonlinear. You can't find it not different, and you can't find it not the same.
Right.
And how do you make sense of that? Well, you don't. It's just infinitely weird.
And that can instantly become this.
Sure.
But how?
Sure.
And then if you define this, there's an infinite ways of defining this.
Sure. But it never becomes anything else. Define it how you want. Here it is.
Peter, there seems to be so much inherent intelligence in what this is. It's just dripping and oozing.
It's pure intelligence. It's pure structure. It's pure meaningfulness. There's no limit to how profoundly it can look at itself and correlate itself and interrelate itself. It's done.
It's like off to the side, I was watching some show and it was like PhD gentleman who studied the liver for his whole life and the world-renowned doctor on the liver, And he, just like us, the liver does 700 different functions simultaneously. And he it reminded me of a Satsang or Satsang or whatever. He couldn't think of the words to describe how intelligent the liver was. It's so astounding, and he's just grasping for, and that's just one organ
in
our body.
It's impossible. The synchronicity of functions. I mean, you look at physiology, the synchronicity of functions, there's no way that could be contrived. I mean, it's stupefyingly, interlockingly. How can that happen? Even within a cell. I mean, the cell is this tiny little thing, and it doesn't, and yet even the cell is incredibly differentiated in all this sophisticated metabolism and stuff. How's that happen?
Information.
How does all this functional organization occur just spontaneously?
It's like miracle upon miracle upon miracle.
Yeah, but for real. Not just metaphorically, but yeah. Dude, check it out.
At the same time, you cannot think two thoughts at the same time. They're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, who knows?
And also, you kind of limit it to five senses. Well, some people say there's also a sense of gravity, perhaps. There's a sense of some kind of, height sense, a sense of time, that's perception, I don't know, but some scientists making a presumption that even though we are limited to our five senses, and it's only we can perceive what's given because we are so limited, the true reality is way outside of our senses. There's all kinds of crap around us that we may not even see, perceive, and never find out with it.
But aside from that theoretical, that abstraction of things that exist that you don't perceive, even within what you do perceive, the notion that you're limited to five senses is not particularly accurate, because when you look for the senses what they are, you can't really pin them down as being limited. And you can't really pin them down as not having anything in between them, and you can't really pin them down as not having anything outside them.
Well, I don't do the right. I'm just saying that the senses, for example, maybe dog possibly can perceive certain things because his range of hearing, his range of smell is so much wider, but at the same time, maybe he has some other kind of sensation.
Yeah, but that's an abstraction. I mean, you can imagine what a dog's like, just like you can imagine what another person experiences like. But you always imagine it from within your experience, which is the only actuality.
My own biggest dilemma has always been to feel my own sense of presence. Not in the five senses. A lot of non-dual teachers are saying that you can perceive each and every sense, confounded with the same as you mentioned. However, it's not necessarily a purpose to identify with it. So if you sensing a thought, don't go with it. If you smell anything, don't just identify with it. It's nice to recognize and register, so to speak, in the background of your consciousness or on some kind of screen. The most profoundest of all is to see the screen. And there's inaudible type of sensation that doesn't have a name that you can call it sensation of perception. If you see your senses and it's fine, leave them alone, and then turn around, get like a 180 degrees and look back at where's that consciousness, where's that screen awareness that aware of all these five senses. That's my own little dilemma. How do I get in touch with that?
You're creating a separation. You're saying the senses are over here and consciousness is over here. If you want to see consciousness, look here. This is consciousness.
Okay.
If you want to see the screen of a movie, where do you look for the screen of the movie? Look at the movie. It's over here, and you look for the screen over here. The screen is right there. The consciousness is right here. This is consciousness. This is the screen.
Mm-hmm.
The radiance is the presence.
Mm-hmm.
The experiential qualities is the screen, is the presence, is consciousness. Consciousness is not over here watching experiential qualities over here. The experiential qualities are appearing in consciousness. So when you see an experiential quality, you're seeing consciousness. I see you, I'm seeing consciousness in consciousness. This is the screen. Or you wouldn't appear. I couldn't see you.
Well, not necessarily make a separation, but kind of not identify with that sense of visual perception, sense of your hearing or your thoughts.
What do you mean by identifying with that?
Being what that is. So identifying that means taking that for yourself. Thoughts or your mind as you, body as you. No, those are separate entities.
They're separate from you?
Somehow non-dual teachers, including Maharshi, saying that look at that, the consciousness, which is part of your body, but it's not your body. Look at your thoughts, your mind, your meditation. It's part of you, but it's not you. Go to what you are. That's awareness. That's something separate.
It's not separate. You're misunderstanding.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's not separate. It is all experiential phenomena appear because of consciousness. So they are consciousness, but consciousness is not limited to being any particular experiential phenomenon. Right? So I see the color of your skin. I see the color of your skin because of consciousness. But the color of your skin isn't my consciousness. My consciousness is that which is all seeing, that which is all feeling, that which is all hearing. So it's not limited to any particular experiential phenomenon.
Mhm.
But every experiential phenomenon is that. If you're watching a movie, every single thing you see on the screen is the light from the projector. But the light from the projector is not any particular thing you see on the screen. But it's not separate. It's not like the light from the projector is over there, stuck, and the screen is over here, and there's, the light is on the screen. But the portion, the totality is not limited to being a portion.
Mhm.
So the consciousness, every portion of experience is consciousness. The consciousness is not limited to being that portion of experience.
Mhm.
But that portion of experience is nothing other than consciousness.
That's
So
it.
it's paradoxical.
Mhm. Well, let's say you are what you are seeking, you are what you are looking for.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
The only thing you can find is what this is, which is what you are. The Atman is this presence. What I call radiant presence is the same thing that Ramana Maharshi called the Atman, the self.
Mhm.
It's that which is, it's that which is actual, it's that which exists. Only one thing exists. And that one thing that exists is reality, is you, is the universe. We have all different words to throw at it, but it's this one thing that is here. This is here. It's not an abstraction. It's all this,
Mhm.
this, right? This is real, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not an idea, it's real, this is really here. Well, this real here-ness is the absolute.
Mhm.
This real here-ness is what you are. This real here-ness is what everything is. And there's no sub-quality, it's not like you're a little piece of it over here, and the universe is a big piece of it over here, and consciousness is a piece, it's not like that. It's all just this one thing right here.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is it. And so if you're looking for anything, this is all you're gonna find. You look for yourself, you find this. You look for the universe, you find this. You look for reality, you find this. This is it. But it's not abstract. It's completely concrete. It's actual. It's real. This is it. This is reality. Reality is really real. So surprise, surprise.
But if you're aware of the awareness, that means that's more abstract, right? If you.
Well, if you're calling it awareness and you're calling it you being aware of it, you're taking it, you're looking at portions of it as if they were differentiable, separatable.
Yeah.
But in actuality, when you look for awareness, you find this.
Mhm.
When you look for you, that's looking for your awareness, you find this.
Mhm.
It's what complicates things is our language.
Mhm.
We have thousands of words and only one actuality. So all these words actually refer to the same thing.
Mhm.
But they pretend, they claim to be something that they're different. Awareness is not consciousness. Consciousness is not the self. The self is not the body. The body is not, the vision. It's like all these words, vision, self, body, consciousness, awareness. Every single one of them refers to nothing other than this. So they're all actually the same thing. There's only one thing. There should only be one word. And that word should be is. And as a verb, and if there's a noun, the verb should be it. So the only true sentence you can say is it is, or this is.
Mhm.
And so any noun is really this, and any verb is really is. So we talk is really a way of saying this is. Looking like what we can think of as we talking. But it's really just this is. It happens to look like that. Right? We twist ourselves up with our sloppy thinking. Because of definitions, you read a dictionary and a word is defined in terms of a dozen other words. And you look at each of those words and those are defined each in terms of a dozen other words, and you're just scattering out into all of this division, all this difference. But what a word really means is the reality that it refers to. If I'm talking about plant, I'm talking about this. This is a reality. Plant is an abstraction. Plant is a word. If I say, plant is not an animal, these are abstractions. This is presence. This is experience. This is quality. This is you. This is the universe. This is what the universe looks like here. 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 It's not a different universe. It just looks different. You look at it different ways. This is what awareness looks like here. This is what awareness looks like here. This is what awareness looks like here. Same awareness. It just looks different. So, but which awareness is here? Just one of them. It just looks different. It's confusing. It all gets very simple when you see there's only one actuality. So that means there's only one thing. That one thing, it looks as if it's infinitely differentiated, which makes it a very strange kind of a thing compared to what we're used to thinking of things as being. So there's one thing that looks like all of the universe. Isn't that interesting? But it's just one thing anyway. It looks that way, so that's weird, but hey, who said it wasn't supposed to be weird? Has it ever been not weird? How about we have another 5-minute break, and then we'll do our last little hangout for the day, if you like. If you feel like, if you're out getting burnt out, we can knock off for the day. Or we can go for another half hour or something, wrap it up, sum it all up. So yeah, let's take a quick 5-minute break. Let's stretch.
Very good. Back up.
Peter, it's like, can you begin to read the text? Buddha realm, all realms, this realm, all the same realm.
Yeah, they just interpret the fragments in different ways, it's saying the same thing. Is human life hell? Well, sure, you can see it that way. Is human life heaven? Well, sure, you can see it that way. Is human life not even human life? But,
What is this?
transcendental radiance, virtual empty radiance appearing in the Dharmakaya? Well, sure, you can see it that way. There's only one reality, but there's infinite ways of seeing it. It never becomes anything else than what it is. And you can never pin down or say exactly what it is. It's not limited to being one thing and not another. So it's like a chameleon. It's an infinite chameleon. It can be any way you see it, but it never actually becomes anything other than what it is, which makes it a very strange figure. No wonder it's so confusing. And you approach it from within the structure of human logic. Because human logic is built on either or. A thing is A or it's B, it's not A or B. It's a cup or it's a paper, but it's not a cup or it's both. It's here, it's there, it can't be both. But reality isn't like that. Reality is always both there. Reality is it's here and it's there.
Yes.
And this and it's there. It's heaven and it's there. So it's just infinitely confusing. But the fault of that confusion is human logic, not it. If human logic was reasonably structured, it would be structured on different bases, it would be structured on either or non-linear logic.
But knowing this, as I do, I recognize that the person's own
Humans are not very clever thinkers. I've come up with this very kludgy, plodding, linear logic system which has virtually no application to reality. That makes good sense. Let's make a logic system to deal with reality. It has nothing to do with reality. Reality is holographic and fractal. Human logic is not there.
I've studied Buddhism all these years here, continues to say. I can see, like you talked about, compassion. At the ultimate sense, it's transcendent, it's enlightenment. But as a practice, it can be helpful, because it's reducing the ego and being more oneness. And also, they call it the great contemplations, impermanence, interdependence, karma, cause and effect. Those are all, again, practices that can lead to doors being open.
Right.
Interdependence.
But they're limited. They're heavy-handed. They're plodding. When you look at any one of those, what you find transcends what you started looking for. When you look for interdependence, you find something that's beyond it. When you look for emptiness, you find something that's beyond emptiness. And in fact, you look at any of them, you find the same thing. They converge.
And that's what
because reality is one thing, and all these skillful means, which are this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah.
And
are arrows pointing into the center.
Contemplating the 700 skeletons, things of the liver also get you the same spot as well. It's like everything gets you to the same spot.
Anybody who looks, you find the same thing.
And to say that one is better than another is basically, the universe doesn't work that way.
No, look wherever you're getting mileage. That's the whole trick of this book. It's very opportunistic. You go anywhere, and that's a good place to do it. And so, with that being the case, go where it's easy. Don't go where it's hard. You see something, you go, whoa, that's amazing. Okay, cool, well, then go there. See what you find.
We like to get together and talk about this stuff. Which cannot be simpler, wider they're interested in spooks and charmers and interventionists and healers. They think it's about something.
Everything's so slippery. It's like resting in the natural state. That's the same as being really crazy and running around with a chick with a stuff.
Or not.
Oh, no.
Anything is resting in the natural state because there is nothing else. And the natural state has no hierarchy. Samsara is not worse than divine. Clarity is not worse than delusion. They're all different. They're all different perspectives and modes of the same thing. So it's a complete knowledge. And that's why liberation is liberation from needing liberation this, which is that. It's just, hey, whatever, lighten up, anything goes, who cares, it's all the same. You can't do it wrong.
It was like finally accepting this for what it is. It's like
It's
really
reality.
accepting.
It's getting real. It's like not
I'm
real.
not trying to imprint anything on top of it. It is what it is.
And it'll take care of the imprinting for you. So not to worry.
Yes, that's right.
What we think we are as humans, we're so, and you say this often, from your teaching there, we're so insignificant. What we think we are, we're so insignificantly small relative to this thing that's going on. The human form of what we are is this little, I think it's like this little fly buzzing around somewhere relative to that. Oh.
Yeah. We have the same thing as a little feedback.
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes.
Okay.
There's no one around to say, yeah, like you, thank you so much. It's so ridiculous, what? You're doing the right thing. You hear that? They don't have a go right into that. But there's no one there. They notice, they know us. And they're child, they don't have, yeah, they don't have the abilities.
Subject there.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and, focusing, he was on sand, with this stuff. And, and of course, he had all kinds of devices. If you want to kind of suspicion of that.
Ability to put it in the right place.
Have to be focused on certain area. But meanwhile, as you compose it, you see more. Just like people just were talking about, it's like, you still have your eye gaze in exactly the same direction. But it's not a hard focusing, because you're not excluding everything outside of the vision.
True, because you look around you and, yeah, and you have no.
And he, so he was first one who actually did,
Pathologically, the body said, wants to survive, so it has to fit in, and house, take care of.
You go to the office way, that's the that's the same way that
No, you saw the roof.
Court is now in session. So yoga, very in presence. Yoga, which is the relationship of dynamism and form, or if you wish, the cessation of differities, and the way things are patterned seem to be a certain way that coexist in the flow of ways that transcend that particular way of seeing, within the context of great presence, of this presence that is here, that presents us all of these amazing qualities that constitute experience. All the experiential qualities of light, sound, color, all the sensory qualities, mental qualities, vibe qualities, spiritual quality, any quality whatsoever is right here in this, and is this. And all the qualities are this, and this is all the qualities. So the forms are the flow is the forms, as the Buddhists would say. The form is the void is the form. So, as humans, we're sort of used to dividing things and playing favorites and saying, well, this is this and that's that. There's form and there's emptiness. There's stuff and there's flow. But actually the stuff is flow, and the flow is stuff. And the way that works is all very strange and slippery. And playing with that, noticing the experience is actually like that, is what this is all about. And then, of course, what you discover as a result of looking into this and seeing that is the case, and seeing the way that that's the case, is that that's what you are. That's what your world is. That's what your life is. It's this amazing, miraculous flow of astounding weirdness, of astounding awesomeness. And, in that context, wow, what a hoot. And so that's so we go full circle to where we started today. That's kind of the whole shooting match. But just being with one's experience, just playing with one's experience is an ongoing discovery, an ongoing revelation of just amazing possibilities of the way that this can be, in ways that this will always surprise what we've discovered in the past. We discover something new. Oh my God, I never expected that. I couldn't have imagined that yesterday. And we always just moving continually into new discovery. And experience is always that. Experience has never been anything but that. Every day is a new day. Every day is newness, freshness. Fresh perspective, fresh revelation. So that's my summing up. What's your summing up? Let me out of here. I want dinner.
It seems like there's a lot of trouble caused by the evaluation of good versus bad, comfortable, not comfortable. Like that seems to be the crux of it sometimes, like
Sure.
how to just drop that whole comparison thing and just this.
Well, you don't need to drop it. You just see that there's always shades of gray. The human logic is made to separate this from that. You tell what this is by knowing it's not that. You tell what that is by knowing it's not this. And so all of human logic is oriented toward differentiating. And yet there's a sameness. There's a permeative wholeness and completeness, where things that are separate are actually unified, are actually aspects of the same system. Us and them isn't actually really so much us and them, it's actually kind of an us altogether. So when we separating things, differentiating things is actually small thinking. And when you think from the bigger picture, you discover, yeah, things are separate, but they're also unified. They're also aspects of the same thing. They're also parts of the same system.
Seems like you have to make a lot of rash assumptions to even say, this is good, that's bad.
Of course.
Like you have to erect an entire framework
Exactly.
to say something's bad and believe it.
Exactly. You erect an interpretive framework. Just to say anything positively, you have to have a whole interpretive framework of basically a map of what everything in reality is implicitly in order to serve as a basis for that differentiation. And when you look at experience isn't actually like that. Experience is a sort of an inclusive continuum. Sure, there's all kinds of differentiation. There's all kinds of extreme ranges of different flavors and textures and qualities, but they're all aspects of a continuum. They're all aspects of a spectrum, rather than separate, discrete, this is and that that have no common ground.
It seems like your invitation is a way to drop some of the framework. Not even drop it, but just look beyond it or
Yeah,
something
just
else.
notice that it's partial. It's partial. It's an approximation. It's inaccurate. And you don't even need to stop doing it. It doesn't matter. It's just not completely true. It's like having a map and knowing the map is not wholly inaccurate, but the terrain is not the map. There's more out there than is showing up on the map. So you don't believe your map. You can use the maps all you want. There's nothing wrong with having interpretive frameworks. But don't believe that they're reality. And especially don't believe reality is them. I mean, as humans, it's very easy to jump into an all or nothing extremism in spirituality. Human thought is stupid and inaccurate. I'm never going to think another human thought again. I'm never going to say another inaccurate word again. I'm going into reality, head first. But it's not. It doesn't need to be all or nothing. In fact, it's just a discovery of context You know, you can have your normal personality, you can have your, you know, your partial skill set and your shortcomings and your inadequacies and your sloppy thinking and all the rest of it, whatever that is, you can have that, but that exists in a context which is more than that, which is outside that, and which is included. It's not like you either have that or you have the context. They come together. The island is connected to the seabed. It's a continuum. It's not like the island's here and it's disconnected from the seabed and they're different things and you get one or the other. When you have the island, you have the seabed. Because they're one and the same. When you have the seabed, you have the island. So when you have anything, you have its context as well. You have this continuum, because it's included, it comes with. Everything comes with its context. And that includes these partialities of our personalities and our human functioning and our biased thinking and all of that. Because that doesn't exist in a vacuum, that exists in a context of this lusciousness, of this richness. It's not excluding it or shutting it out. It's easy to be a spiritual Nazi, where you're curious about this or that, but all you're doing is perpetuating, you know, sloppy human dualistic thinking.
Does the temptation of mapping sort of fades away a bit? Because as I was listening, I was again, okay, it's form versus formlessness. But again, formlessness happens in something broader than just form versus formlessness, etc., etc. So yet another attempt I make to map. So, you know, that's sort of, and then I have this attempt has a texture too. This trying to map.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I feel I'm still hoping this will fade or calm down, but it doesn't seem to. So I just feel that wanting to calm this down, you know, I hear you, I believe you, I believe what I'm noticing that these mappings are inaccurate, and immediately after comes that wanting to not erase it, but, you know, somehow lose my interest.
Map the inaccuracy?
yeah, exactly. So
precisely how is it in percent?
So it's something that tries to freeze itself all the time, and I guess that's okay, but that feels that does it, I can't find the question, does it diminish somehow, or does it?
Yeah, it settles in itself. As, you know, the very nature of this yoga is, as your sensitivity increases, as your ability to be with this inconsistency and incoherence of what this is, the way this can manifest as so many contrary modes that even though they're contrary, they aren't opposite or exclusive. They coexist irrationally. And to be comfortable, to be settled into comfort and ease with this irrationality, it comes spontaneously, it comes with familiarity, and it develops over time. It's a process of maturing. It's like a learning curve, like any sort of a process. It has its own natural nature, its own natural kind of flow. But yeah, I mean, you know, all aspects of human maturing has always been about learning to deal with complexity and incoherence. You know, when you're a child, I just want sweet. I only want sugar. I don't want anything else. No vegetables. You know, but as you become an adult, you develop a more educated palate, and you become interested in these very exotic flavors. Some of them or even sort of ugly flavors, but they're interesting, they're fascinating. And you appreciate them, even though they're inconsistent, they don't go with other flavors. So you have a broad palette of being able to appreciate very contrary, incoherent things without needing them to all fit together in a nice, neat way, where they're all sweet, or they're all this, or they're all that. You develop a sophisticated palette. And it's very much like that with this. You develop a sophisticated palette of the different ranges of ways of intelligence being with form, of different ways of degrees of coherence and incoherence, different ways and degrees of harmony and dissonance. And you can be comfortable with dissonance, you can become comfortable with contrariety, even as you're comfortable with harmony and their coexistence. You can become comfortable with things not making sense together, and the other things that make sense together. And so instead of needing it to be all one way or all another way, you just sort of you relax and you sort of accept however it is. You find a way that works, and so it becomes an ease. It becomes a kind of a comfort and a relaxing into the actuality, and it becomes an open inclusiveness where all of these different modes they're just present in the way that they are, and that's okay. And so we have even these contrary modes of our annoying human characteristics of wanting to get a handle on everything and make sense of things when the rational mind is churning away. And at the same time, part of you is just, irrationally grooving on the flavors and the vibes and what have you. And it all coexists and doesn't make any sense together. And here it is. It's all cool. And that, that sense, that sophistication to be able to be with that complexity and that inconsistence and that divergence, it just develops. It does develop, and it definitely develops into more of an ease and less of a needing to sort of, make sense of it or engage with it or,
Of course, at that point, when it develops into an ease, then you're no longer seeing one thing as desirable and another as undesirable.
But that doesn't necessarily cancel it out. It doesn't necessarily mean your preferences will be erased and it become plain vanilla. Or, it might. Maybe yes, maybe no, right? But not necessarily.
Well, I just noticed that if I'm really in my center, like a good day, the things that I have a distaste for, behavior or whatever it might be, it could still be there, but I no longer have a distaste for it. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I'm not even seeing it as distasteful.
Yeah, it becomes more of an exclusiveness and more of a sort of equanimity with things, for sure.
Problem is, I'm not there every day.
but that's the nature. The very nature of what this is it never reaches a stable state and stays there.
For anybody? Ever?
Never, of course not.
No human being?
No human being. No any being. It's an infinitely dynamic, non-repeating, spontaneous energy system that can go anywhere and do anything and look like anything.
You said something earlier about this zap and the word transmission, and you said that's really just a reflection of yourself.
Yes.
You're just experiencing your own energy, so to speak.
Yes.
But on your website, it says slightly differently. It talks about transmission as an experience when being in the presence of someone who is enlightened. I don't remember the exact terminology, but...
Yeah, it often can seem to be like that. Transmission can seem to occur in certain context or in certain company and all these various things. But the important ingredient is that it occurs, not necessarily any particular idea of any mechanism by which it's occurring. And it really consists of a flash of insight into the actuality of your own experience in the present moment. So, it can often feel like a kind of a waking up, like I've been sort of dozing off, and all of a sudden, wow, wait a minute, this is really here, this is really happening, this is really it. And so there can be a sense of kind of increased vitality or relevance there.
So it's consistent with what you were saying before. It's always an experience of your own energy and can occur
Yeah, I would say most typically it seems to occur in some context. You might be in some sacred spot or in some beautiful place or, in some particular company or whatever. But, I think that that's not necessarily essential so much as just the accidents of how it works out. I mean, the main thing is it's not a matter of a sort of a structural thing you can try just to appreciate it when it occurs. But it's always just a degree of insight and appreciation, which sort of makes all this stuff real. So instead of just being theoretical, wow, wait a minute, this is all about me. This is all about this right here. This is for real. This isn't just a lot of pie in the sky, pretense and wishful fulfillment. And boy, wouldn't it be nice, if there was, peace, or if there were angels, or if there was, it's like, wait a minute, this is for real. All that stuff is right here. This is, and so all of a sudden it becomes actualized. It becomes sort of energized and powerful. But always for you, for the individual, that in that experience.
So people who have very, very dark experiences, they just, dark as dark can be.
Sure.
My question would be, is that as real as, so
Yeah.
one person has an experience with the angels and what have you, and another filled with demons, and
Sure.
I have no idea what their experience is, but dark and filled with beliefs of superstitions, and I really don't know. That just a function of their own fears, a function of
Whatever, different energy flavors. But anyone,
as real
Sure.
as
all experience is real, but it's not real as what you think it is at the time. Because what the experience is unimaginable and unthinkable. Experience is always intrinsically transcendental. So the mind always thinks it is a certain thing, a certain way, but it is always more than that, while not necessarily not being that. But to go back specifically to your question, yeah, really dark, intense experience can be a great opportunity. Any kind of experience, generally, and from my point of view, in sort of yogic terms or practical terms, any experience is useful as a vehicle for revelation, a vehicle for discovery. And often the more intense experiences, particularly if they're unusual, are great opportunities. But that includes whatever direction they're extreme in. They can be extremely, horrific, or extremely wonderful, or extreme anything. And the advantage of these kinds of experiences is mainly they can take you out of your sort of dullness of normalcy, your sort of sense of same old, and into freshness, which is the opportunity for discovery, the opportunity for noticing that things are, more things in heaven and earth kind of thing.
how come everybody can't see the angels? How come some people?
Everybody does in different ways, in different times, and in different guises. They might not parse it that way, but everyone sees everything all the time, but they may not recognize it or appreciate it for what it is fully.
Meaning everybody sees has the darkness as well, but they may not see it that way?
Well, sure, and darkness per se isn't necessarily darkness. Darkness is a mode of light. Darkness is not the opposite of light. Darkness is a mode of light.
Not the absence of light?
But absence of light is a mode of light too.
Right.
There's no non-God, there's no non-reality. So any flavor, any energy flavor is reality, is the divine, is actuality. And goodness, lightness in those terms, lightness versus dark, is discovering what anything really is. When you discover what dark really is, you found the light. Because there's no actual dark. Just like there's no actual unreality.
And then there's no actual light either.
Well, yeah, but that's getting esoteric. I mean, what there is can't be said. But what there is so far out that the more far out, if saying it's all God is a great way to put it. Because, not because that means anything, because so telling it's all God means what? Exactly, spell that out. But it's a good thing to call it because it's so far out and the implication is so inconceivably overwhelming. There's no way for you to get your mind around that notion, which makes it a useful way to put it. So it's all God. You know, it's all the absolute, it's all whatever, it's all, you know, because whatever is nothing that you can possibly think or say or describe. And it really is that, right here, right now, this is that. And that's the point to appreciate. That this right here is the transcendental. This right here is the extreme. You know, it actually is, and that's discoverable. It's directly discoverable and self-verifyingly experienceable. And that's the point, is to play with this and explore it enough until you come to see that, until you come to appreciate it. And what a joy.
What are your thoughts on prayer?
Well, it depends what you mean by that.
Well, some people could see prayer as a state of discontentment. I pray for this because I don't have it, for example. So I was just curious what you thought about prayer.
Well, again, it depends what you mean by that word. There's a lot of different ways to hold that. You know, any open open, intelligent engagement with your experience is valuable and is illuminating. If you're using prayer as an invitation or as a vehicle to experience a kind of an openness with your experience, that's nice. But if you're using prayer as a way of closing down, as a way of inserting definitions, as a way to say, I am me and I need this and I'm asking for this because it's over there, all you're doing is reifying your own closeness and your own definitions, which is ultimately, it turns out, ultimately opening, because sooner or later, no matter how much you claim that you're limited, you're going to be shoved in the face of the fact that you're not, and it's going to knock you for a loop. So even that is ultimately opening, but it's a more inefficient way of doing it. The most efficient way is to be with opening in real time. So if you can be with prayer that is a prayer that is an opening of, making yourself available, or however, then I would say that is probably potentially valuable, but more efficient, let's say. Anything you do is good, because everything leads to, everything goes where it goes. There's no wrong living. All life is the process of self-revelation, of divine discovery.
I love that. There's no wrong living.
There isn't, right. Because the life force itself is an incredibly elaborate metabolism or mechanism or process of the absolute discovering itself. And it cannot fail because it's got inconceivable transcendental resources that's bringing to bear on the process. The strange fact that inconceivable transcendental process of self-discovery can look like our pathetic human lives is bizarre and amazing. But still, since it is that, even in this context of seemingly our pathetic human lives, it's possible to discover that it is actually this divine process and problem solved. Because then even if it is the pathetic human life, the fact that it is this divine process is like, hey, dude, that's pretty nice.
So the assumption, based on what you're saying, the assumption is there are many lives, because many people die in this lifetime and they never experience what you're describing.
Who knows? Who knows if there are any lives? I mean, even many lives. It looks as if there's many. It looks as if there's my life. It looks as if there's many lives, but we don't even know if there's time and space. So the whole notion of manyness and or repeatability of anything, it's all hypothetical, But at any rate, it certainly is that process. So, however that sort of breaks itself down in terms of, quantity or series or whatever, it's still just doing whatever it's doing the way that it is.
This is a question, but from, sometimes feels that this is, like what we see and perceive it's like the waves on the ocean where it's just it's a very simple imprint of what it is, but the vastness of what's underneath it is incomprehensible.
Sure.
But is it the right way to think about it? Because, but just what this is incomprehensible as well.
Sure.
It's just,
Anywhere you look, you find incomprehensibility, if you're honest. That just can seem to be not incomprehensible as incomprehensible. How can that happen? But no, for sure. But you're both right, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, to look at it in sort of psychological terms, with the small portion of our lives that the mind pretends to have made sense of and have a handle on exists in the context of this vastness of what the fuck is this? What's going on? It's irrational, it's weird, and wow. And that's just a self-evident fact.
For years I felt incredibly uncomfortable, now a little bit more comfortable, although still incredibly uncomfortable. That seems to be the arc of being able to, not being able to stay with this, and now having some feeling for what it is, and be here is like a transition. Right?
Yeah. But the very nature of maturing in life is settling into, it's really getting a feel for exactly that, for wow, this is the way it is, and how can that be? And my God, what do I do about that? And yet here it is, and here I am, and on we go. And however it happens. Well, I feel like it's been a pretty long day. So why don't we break for the night? I guess some of you are here just for today, and if so, it's been lovely seeing you and spending time with you. And otherwise, we'll be back here, the rest of us who are doing the whole weekend, be back here at 10 tomorrow. And we'll see what happens.
Thank you.